Hello, in this video we are going to be looking at part 4 of the Trig notes, and we're going to start an initial pass through these where you're going to try to create graphs using your graphing calculator and the table feature on the graphing calculator. In this video I'm not going to go step by step through each example, but I am going to show you kind of the general idea of how you'll plug a few of the things into your calculator, the basic operations, and then you can work on your own to create the graphs in your notes packet. So there are 7 of the graphs that you'll want to be responsible for here. Like I said, right now we're just going to be creating sketches of the graphs using the table. I'm going to set up XY charts kind of in this space on the side on each graph. If you know what the type of the graph is, you can go ahead and classify, but wait to do anything with domain and range just yet for right now. So focus on the graph and on the table. All right. Some of the basics of navigating your graphing calculator. First off, power it on. The main commands we're going to use are your Y equals and graph buttons to create the graphs on our graphing calculator. We will also utilize the table feature to extract actual coordinate pairs. And then I'll also show you a zoom window that's pretty standard. That's very helpful here. So first of all, the Y equals screen is where you'll want to go to enter in an equation that you want to graph. So if I just make one up, let's say I do 2x squared plus 5. The x button that you'll want to use for your variable is right here next to alpha. And I said 2x squared, so I'll use the squared button down here, just a little further down the calculator. Then I said plus 5. And then when I hit graph, it should produce a graph of that equation. So I know I've done that successfully. If your window was different or looked different at this moment, hitting zoom and then option 6, and you can just press the number 6, will standardize that window and use that zoom feature there. And then the other thing to know is that you can hit second and then table. So that was the blue button, second, and then table, which is the selection above graph there. And you can scroll through and you would be able to find good coordinate pairs to utilize. So that's what you should do for each of the graphs in your packet here. So starting off with this first one, plug that in, create a graph here on your grid using some of the XY values that you'd be able to find. When you go to plug in for graph number 2, these are absolute value bars. You'll need to select when you're in your Y equals screen, math, which is right here under alpha, and then scroll over to num, and then ABS stands for absolute value. So I'm going to write that here, math, num, ABS, and then that would place absolute value bars in your Y equals. If you have an older calculator, it might say ABS and then have the beginning of parentheses, and you'll just need to close your parentheses where the last absolute value bar would be. Similar to that, when you go to enter in your square root, you can do that with second square root here. Newer calculators will create the square root, and then it'll have a little dashed box for you to enter in anything that's underneath the square root. Older calculators will have parentheses that you'll need to close when you get to the end of whatever goes under the square root. When you do the x cubed plus 5x squared, this is a cubic function here. When you do this one, keep in mind you can use the caret button. So you can enter in x caret 3 to do an exponent of 3. And then you'll use that same button here to do 3 caret x to put the variable in the exponent here. And then on graph 7, this is a rational function. You'll want to make sure to put parentheses around the numerator and around the denominator, especially if you have an older calculator. So setting up x plus 3 divided by x minus 4. So it should look like that. And then you'll know you have the correct graph on that one if it looks something like this. All right, let me go back through and show you step by step what I would do with the first one. so you know as far as how to utilize the table. So I would enter in, I'm going to clear out what's there, 2x plus 3, hit graph. I'll see this line for this first one. I'm going to hit second table, and then I'm just going to grab a few of the points here. These are nice integer values, so that gives me something to work with here. So some xy values that I can plot. And then I will go ahead and replicate this on my graph here. 2, -1, 0, 3, 1, and 5, 2, and 7. And then connect your dots. So that's the main goal we're trying to accomplish, is getting a graph and using the table feature of our calculators to do that. And then if you want to go ahead and write down that this one is a linear equation, you can classify these if you know the different types. So go ahead and then work through graphs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 using the same process, graphing them, utilizing the table.